and welcome back to the channel. LC here. I know it's been a while since we had some Dissidia content on this channel. We have the follow-up to our 5 reasons that Dissidia have ultimately failed. We'll be talking about today 5 things that we need the next Dissidia title to have in order for it to be successful. So one thing that I've been doing over the last, I want to say few weeks, few months or so, is I've been kind of compiling a lot of the feedback that people have been giving regarding, hey, why they didn't like Dissidia NT, where they would like to see the series go back to or kind of evolve to. So that's one thing that I've been kind of compiling slowly. I ran some polls and stuff like that in the Discord and Facebook community groups, Reddit, stuff like that. So I think I have a pretty good approximation as to what the community 100% wants out of the next Dissidia title. Now, just kind of a disclaimer here, some of these POVs will be coming from somebody that is a competitive player, right? I play a lot of fighting games and stuff like that, and pretty much Dissidia NT was strictly competitive. So some of these things will be skewed in that direction, but I did try and culminate a lot of what the community said there. So if you see a lot of things that seem like, hey, it's really geared towards the multiplayer, there's a reason for that, right? Because my key thing is going to be, hey, can you actually play the game? You sit down, can you actually go in and play the game? That's always going to be key. That's going to be number one for me. But I did definitely try and take a lot of the commentary that you guys provided and really kind of put that into the overall equation. So I appreciate everybody that provided feedback for that. As a reminder, guys, we are on the road for 1,000 subscribers. Please, if you are new here, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the video with your friends. I'd definitely like to know what you guys want out of your next Dissidia title, or what you guys think the next Dissidia title 100% needs in order to be a success, right? Not just go back to where it was, but just kind of take this thing a step further. I'd like to hear from you guys in the comment. As usual, guys, make sure you give me a shout on Twitter, join our community Discord if you'd like to have some Dissidia discussions, RPG discussions, stuff like that. And without further ado, guys, here's the top 5 things the next Dissidia title needs live now. Okay, to start us off with, we have leagues, tournaments, and seasons. Now, this is an element I think will definitely assist with both the ongoing player engagement as well as to ensure a consistent volume of healthy competitive play throughout the title's lifecycle. I think definitely having an ongoing circuit, a league, a tournament, something to that effect is going to be tantamount to ensure that players that are looking for a meaningful way to scratch a competitive itch are going to be able to do so in a high quality setting. This is something that's been greatly popularized with the advent of other fighting game staples such as the Street Fighter League and Arc Revo. This tie with either a seasonal character release cycle or more of a battle royale-esque battle pass that includes free cosmetics would be key in keeping players active within the game and its community. Coming off of Dissidia NT, this was exceptionally painful to deal with, and not having any direct influence or support from the game's developer themselves caused a multitude of issues regarding competitive viability, rule sets, and stuff like that. And speaking of direct support, please, for the love of God, please hire a direct community manager, someone who is aware and abreast of the game and the community, and it wouldn't hurt if they actually had a smidge of passion about it as well. This is something we've seen you guys do with the high level of efficiency for other titles such as Final Fantasy 14 and Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. This is something that should not be left as an elective when publishing an ongoing multiplayer experience. This is one major area that Dissidia NT had a noticeable amount of stumbles, and it led to overall very mixed communication method from Square Enix involving the game and ongoing future support and things of that nature. Now, both methods are going to have their very clear trade-offs. It's really going to depend on the direction that Square Enix really wants to push the next Dissidia for. Is it going to be a single player title with just, elective multiplayer experience, maybe a little bit of, PvP, stuff like that? Or is it going to be, really integrated to the game from the ground up? And ultimately, depending on the direction that they do take for Dissidia multiplayer, games as a service might be a better route, kind of giving free content throughout and stuff like that. That's been very popularized over the last, I want to say 4 or 5 years or so. A lot of major platforms are kind of going in that same direction. So that might not be a bad idea. If they want to kind of have less risk, they could just always roll out the season pass. So it depends on what they want to do there. I personally think the battle pass would be a much better call here because it is much more lucrative. It's going to keep their books in the green, in my opinion, just because people always eat up those cosmetics. Even my dumbasses out there buying $15 Dissidia skins, like, they're going to buy it no matter what. And rolling in at number 4, we got multi-platform / cross-play functionality. Now, this one is a bit of a no-brainer. However, in my opinion, this might be one of the most difficult things to obtain of everything on this list due to issues with perceived value on putting this game on different platforms and potential issues with server and networking costs in the long run. You see, they have to really be invested in this game's success for the long run, and coming off of Dissidia NT, Square might be a little gun shy and less inclined to put all their chips on the table when sitting back at the table the next go around. You see, I've always contended that a remaster or even the next generation of Dissidia NT would do excellent, on a mobile home console such as the Nintendo Switch. It literally was made for a game like that. The series originally started on a PSP, so it makes perfect sense, a mobile piece of hardware. So this translation in my eyes seems pretty straightforward. Now, we'll flat out say getting the game on Xbox is going to be another beast entirely. While the reception to the Microsoft box has always been relatively tepid at best in Japan, I think with this already being a relatively niche title, getting as robust as a player base as possible would help ensure longevity, and it does seem like the Xbox Square Enix relationship is on a bit of an upswing over the last few years. Unlikely, but it would be nice. And now we have the final piece of the puzzle, right? The almighty crossplay. We get it on Xbox, Switch, PS4, PS5, everything like that. We get the games to release on all single generations, right? That'd be good. So in order to actually make this work out, we need crossplay. Now, crossplay can be a bit of an issue because only really mega corporations tend to be able to get this to go off without a hitch, like Epic Games, Activision with Call of Duty and stuff like that. It normally is a pretty massive undertaking. Now, for MMOs and stuff like that, it seems to be a bit different. But when it comes to just strictly like a fighting game, crossplay is kind of rare. What you generally see is like PlayStation to PC, right? That's generally what you see. Most fighting games don't typically actually launch on the Xbox console as of late, and very few of them actually launch on Switch as well. You might see some crossplay, between Switch and stuff like that. Some indie titles, lower titles have been kind of doing that as of late. Shout out to Power Rangers. So it definitely is possible, but it's really going to come down to, like I mentioned before, the perceived value. Do they see the value in doing this? I think personally, this would be a huge factor for people to actually buy into the game and its ecosystem. They can play with any friend on any platform, right? And if you're leaning into having a longer game life cycle, if you plan on having this game supported for 2, 3, 5 years, ultimately, I think this is going to be an extremely compelling buying point for most prospective customers. All right, coming in at number 3, talking about multiplayer. Now, for anyone who's been a part of this channel since my NT days, the next phrase I utter may come across as a bit blasphemous, but it must be said. The competitive focus on the next Dissidia title should be 100% 1v1 focus. As we discussed in my last video, oh wow, that was actually a while ago. Yikes, sorry about the delay, guys. This has been a lion's share of the feedback that I've seen across most social media, YouTube, Twitter, stuff like that, about what people absolutely want out of their next Dissidia title. Now, I'm not going to say flat out to completely scrap 3v3. I will maintain into my very last breath that this was absolutely brilliant in Dissidia NT. Maybe not its translation to the audience, as far as how to implement it and what made it great. I think there was definitely a little bit of lost in translation there. I think that 1v1 definitely needs to be the focus. Now, if you want to create like a sub-menu, subcategory or something like that, where they, 2v2 or 3v3 is elective and it can do that, that's fine. We don't know how big the stages will be, so that's all up to discussion, right? It all is up to determination as to how that will actually pan out. But having a development team trying to balance a game for 1v1 and 3v3 simultaneously, I think would be a recipe for disaster. So I think just having them put all their, focus on 1v1, getting that nice and pristine and ironed out and balanced, that would be great. And then 3v3 would be a bit like how we treated 1v1 in Dissidia NT. You could do it if you wanted to, but the game wasn't made for that. So if you want to do that, that's fine. But I think at the end of the day, the focus does need to be on 1v1. That's what a lot of people understand the Dissidia game and franchise to be about, is that 1v1 interaction. And I think it's time to definitely give the audience what it wants. No need to make the same mistake twice. Now, with that out the way, let's get into some of the finer details regarding the proposed multiplayer experience, all right? First off, make multiplayer free to play across the board, okay? So if you're gonna go the route where there is a robust multiplayer experience, make that accessible and free to play, across all the platforms and everything like that. You can just jump into multiplayer, and not just a rotating cast of 4 characters a week or something like that, the entirety of the multiplayer experience. Over time, people are starting to realize that this entire idea that we have regarding fighting games, produce a fighting game. A fighting game's out there, you know what I mean? Then you start selling these characters of DLCs and stuff like that. It's just not as profitable as kind of going the free-to-play route. Free-to-play has been proven repeatedly at this point to be just more lucrative, right? And it's going to allow the company to be more solvent, to allow them to continue to support the game, which is ultimately what we all want. I think sometimes when fighting games release and they don't see the numbers that they want to see, ultimately, they kind of start scaling stuff back and things get canceled, and it just becomes kind of an unfortunate situation. And I think going free to play kind of mitigates that to a certain extent, right? It's been proven that the barrier to entry is lower significantly, if not removed altogether, this does lead to overall higher player retention. And if you're offering a compelling experience tied with monetization options, this will definitely make for a widely accepted outcome for both the player and the publisher in this situation. So say that you want to kind of do like a hybridization, right? You want to still sell the game for full price, but you also want to offer the game multiplayer experience for free. Then I would say if the people that buy the game full price, give them like exclusive glamour sets and stuff like that. Give them like exclusive in-game incentives, aesthetics, stuff like that. That way you can kind of get the best of both worlds, because, you know, Square Enix, I think, might be a little bit on the side of resistance to that. I don't see them as like fully walking and embracing like full-blown free-to-play. That would be, I just can't see Square Enix doing that. This might be a kind of a good way to split the difference on this. All right, number 2, roll back netcode. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the big one. If this game is going to have any measure of online gameplay, which I'm sure it is going to in some capacity, please invest in proper rollback netcode architecture for this upcoming title whenever it is released. I hope in my lifetime. Let's just lay it all out on the table, all right? It's a new day out here in these streets. If your fighting game doesn't have decent netcode, regardless of how good the gameplay may be, it's virtually dead out here in these streets after a short period of time. There's countless examples of this. The age of, hey, it might work good in Japan, so, you know, it must be good everywhere else, you know, that's done. Multiple fighting game developers have determined that there is a significant value in ensuring that their game can be played competently from the comfort of our home. With the advent of COVID-19 and its many remixes, in certain locations in the world, being in the same room as someone to play a game is still actually extremely difficult. Of all the reasons on this list, this is the one that is absolutely non-negotiable. If you are releasing an online fighting game without sufficient online netcode architecture, you, sir, are a terrorist to your own community. In tandem with that, let's up the ante just a bit when it comes to matchmaking as well. Several titles have started implementing options to help identify potential problematic opponents, whether it be Wi-Fi indicators or visible ping indicators or region-based matchmaking. I think it's a great step in the right direction in giving players enough information to make an informed decision regarding who they'll be playing with. You see, at the end of the day, this all comes down to the ultimate currency: time. Every single thing in our lives, from our smartphones to our game consoles to our IRL relationships, are all vying for a portion of our time and finding ways to maximize the amount of time to keep you engaged, right? If developers expect us to continue playing their titles, the investment needs to be the same across the board, their investment as well as ours. They need to invest to make sure that the experience that they're being delivered is worthy of our time. All right, the grand finale. We've reached the end of the road here, champs. Overwhelmingly, the number one response that I received was for the Dissidia series to return to its more single-player focus. This is why the majority of people played the Dissidia series to begin with, and while I just spent the last 10 minutes or so discussing in depth the multiplayer experience, for many of the player base, this is nothing more than a cherry on top of the game's single-player experience. You see, the core of the Dissidia audience, and even community to a certain extent, still originates from those classic PSP titles, and you know what those titles did great? They offered a very new and unique take on the Final Fantasy formula while oozing fan service in literally every possible facet. This is why people love the Dissidia series. I mean, guys, where else are we going to see lightning trash talk X-Death or see matchups like Sephiroth versus Golbez? Literally nowhere else. You see, one of the key issues with Dissidia NT, and the reason for its ultimate failure, is that it genuinely forgot what it was as a series and what audience it served. This entire game series is a celebration of the Final Fantasy franchise and should be held to equal esteem from its creators. By providing that experience that your audience has been waiting for an upwards of 15 years, you have a real opportunity to win back a large portion of the audience, and in not so many words, make it right. It's hard not to look at a game like Smash Ultimate and not have a twinge of regret for what could have been for the Dissidia series. But alas, it's not too late. This can be done by diving a bit deeper into the Final Fantasy mythos as a whole and developing a narrative involving the cast that feels true to the source material while providing enough intrigue and plot experimentation to keep us hooked along the way. In short, give us a story worth caring for each character. Now, I know that may certainly be a bit of a big ask depending on the size of the intended roster, but I feel would ultimately make its replay value extraordinarily high as well. Now, while I don't have any specific asks when it comes to characters, except maybe one specific absolutely stacked black mage, I'd like to see a bit more character variety this time around. Funny enough, this is one area that Dissidia NT did very well with the introduction of characters such as Ace and Ramza. What I'm saying is just don't keep it to the mainline series, go for a bit more of the weird and abstract. This is part of the reason that people have grown to love the cast of games like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Legit outside of comic enthusiasts, who the hell knew who Shu McGorath was? I think utilizing the abstract and vast catalog of the Final Fantasy representation would go a long way towards meeting fan service expectation. I mean, look no further than Opera Omnia. This game has almost every character imaginable from even the most obscure Final Fantasy title. And this also reminds me of another great example of this being expertly handled in the cult classic mobile series Project X Zone. Now, in closing, one quick thing I want to touch on, I know this will come up in the comments, is the depth of mechanics in question. Now, this is an area I think we could find a bit of a happy balance between O12 and NT. Now, a lot of people thought NT's mechanics were very straightforward or way too simplistic, while a lot of people think O12's mechanics are just too overbearing and too complex. I think a marriage between the two styles could certainly work for sure. Making it accessible to a larger audience would definitely be key. However, having the option for depth should be front and center, kind of a bit like this monologue here from Mr. Cannon.
For Project L, we're embracing the easy to learn, hard to master mentality. So yes, we are making it easier to jump in with a new character and learn their basic kit. That said, we absolutely believe in rewarding the time you spend going deep on a character and providing opportunities for you to showcase your high-end mastery. One of the delights of fighting games is seeing top players move and fight in a way that's inspiring and distinct from lesser skilled players. We want to set that aspirational summit and build a steadily increasing difficulty curve to get you there.
And that's going to be a wrap, guys. With me coming from a fighting game background, some of these bullet points here are rightfully skewed towards the game actually being playable and its overall longevity, because that's what I think of when I think of fighting games, not just, okay, what is a single player experience or anything like that, but how are we going to be able to play the game, because that's where I came from. I come from a competitive background. I genuinely think the culmination of everything we discussed today would make the next Dissidia title everything it not only should be, but deserves to be. And with that being said, LC signing out here. I appreciate everybody that tuned into the video. I'm sorry it took so long for this to come out. I've been a bit busy. Happy holidays to everybody checking this out. We'll maybe do one or two more Dissidia videos. I'm not really sure. If you guys have ideas, let me know down in the comments of what other topics you'd like me to cover. But other than that, LC signing out. Please make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Peace out.